I'm going to be going over puzzle ideas, move by like basically ideas. Pretty much how it works is that the best way to do this is if you're watching this after it's live, is to pause between each one of these, and as you pause it, try to solve it, and then see how your thoughts match up with what I'm showing, and then see if you got the right answer. Um, Pretty much the best way to go about it that I've done before was the best way I've done it was pretty much look at checks, captures, and threats. That's pretty much the easiest way to do puzzles, and it's also the easiest way to find forcing moves in your own games because that's the easiest to calculate. So there's obviously more than that when it comes to games. There's little positional stuff, planning, other stuff, but when it comes to tactics, the easiest tactics you can do are forcing moves. So that's kind of why I focus on it in puzzles and in your own games. When you calculate lines, a lot of times it can be confusing if you're not sure exactly what to do. But excuse me, when it comes to forcing moves, which is checks, captures, and threats, it's a lot easier to calculate. So give me a second. Okay, I'm ready now. So let's get going. All right. All right, checks, captures, and threats. Every time I see this structure, and it'd be good for you to do the same, is to always look for a back rank checkmate because three pawns are in front of the king, and the king can't move anywhere. So this is actually a very common back rank checkmate. And in your own games, make sure to move one of these pawns at some point so it doesn't happen to you. But don't just move it just because. Because even though, say, if a bishop was here, it will be the same thing. If this pawn was moved, it would be the same thing. It will still be checkmate this way. So don't just move any pawn. You have to be mindful. And there are times where I moved this pawn and it was pretty bad too. So just be mindful that you should move one of these pawns at some point in your game, but don't do it mindlessly either. All right, let's checkmate. Now I see here this bishop is blocking all these squares. This king is blocking this square. This king only has these two squares, which and he's on here, which this rook, this check, is covering all these squares. And this queen can block it, but then he can be taken as well because he's on the square with rook and capture. So that will be checkmate. It's very similar to the back rank mate, except that these two squares are not covered by pawns and it's on the side of the board, but it's covered by your king and your bishop. So they're very good to do for pattern recognition. Checks, captures, and threats. Um, the king can't move here because the knight and the rook, and can't move here because the rook. The only check is by going in this square, which is covered by the knight, and that will also be checkmate because the rook won't be able to capture, and the king has no escape squares because he can't go here because the knight and the pawn, and he can't go here because the pawn. So checkmate with a knight and rook. Same thing. There's three pawns here. So the first thing to look for again would be a back ring checkmate. That'd be the first thing to look for. Let's say check. He can move this piece here, or this piece here. All three squares are undefended. So once one of them moves there, it can be captured. And then it'll be checkmate eventually. So check, check, checkmate. Checks, captures, and threats. So to do checks, captures, and threats here, I don't. The only check I noticed is right here. There's no other check. So let's see here. If the king moves anywhere, I can just take the rook for free. So it looks like that'd be, might be it. Also, if I call it check this way, if he blocks the bishop and I take the rook, it'll be exchange. So you'd be basically up the exchange. It'd be two rooks versus rook and bishop, which can be winning. And I say it that way because if it's an endgame and no pawns, I believe it's drawish, but with pawns, I believe is winning. I think in this situation, it's actually better. I don't really see much of anything else that is of value here. So back rank, checkmate immediately. Let's see here. This would be check. The king would have to move back. This right here would be check. It can be captured, but this piece won't be defended. So if I take back, it would be checkmate. So again, back rank checkmate pattern. Very important to remember. Checks, captures, and threats. This square right here is normally one of the other common checkmates because the king can't capture it if it's defended. And normally most pieces are not targeting the square in the beginning. So f7 and f2 are usually very weak in the opening. I noticed that because the knight is targeting it, and so is the queen. So my attention came over here immediately. If I move the queen here, that would be checkmate. So we're taking the king, and these two squares can't go to them, and the queen is blocking it. Usually, if the queen isn't here, then this would just be check, and the king can just move over. So as long as the queen is there, another piece is there, this is usually a very common threat. A lot of openings attack the square as well. So let's go ahead. Checks, captures, and threats. So 3 pawns are in front of the king. So it's kind of, he has nowhere to go besides here. It's only square. He has nowhere to go at all, pretty much. So then you look for checks. This is a check. And it's protected by the knight. And it can't be captured by the king because it's protected by the knight and there's no other pieces. So that would be checkmate. All right, checks, captures, and threats. This knight has these two squares covered, so the king cannot move in these directions. And if I call check this way, there's different checks. Like I can call check here, but they're both useless. You can just capture it with the rook either way. But if I go over here, because the knight covering these squares, it would be check this way, and the king has nowhere to move. So that would be checkmate in 1. Checks, captures, and threats. Black to move. So these two squares are covered by the knight. This square is blocked by his own rook, and this square is blocked by his own pawn. So the only place he can move is back 1 if he's in check, unless he's in check back here, of course. So check here. He can move back. And this rook will be undefended after that. I don't see a follow-up for checks to make a checkmate, but after I call check and he moves out the way, then I can hit this rook right here, and that'd be a free rook. So this is a combination of a check and a capture. So all right. Give me 1 second. All right. Checks, captures, and threats. Let's see here. Sorry about that. Checks, captures, and threats. There's two checks. There's this check here, which can be captured, and there's this check here, which the king has different squares he can go to, but it's hitting this rook here. So now I got to think about if I were to call a check this way, and the king moves anywhere, and I take the rook, then what? The queen would maybe capture the rook back. You gotta look at then what too, because sometimes people capture stuff and then and that captures a blunder. So I need to make sure that before I capture the rook, that it's not a blunder. That it's not like I capture the rook and then I'm checkmated. You know. So let's check. He moves somewheres, takes the rook. I think that's pretty much it. I don't see anything what you can do besides capture back. By this or the queen. It'll probably be the queen because the knight will be hanging if he moves the rook back. So let's say check, move, take, take. And yeah, I think that looks like it's it. All right. Oh, he took off the wrong piece. If he took off the queen, and this rook was still here, this knight will be blocked off, but he did a wrong capture, so I get to also win the knight. I calculated it earlier. I didn't think he would do that because he had a better move. Checks, captures, and threats. This check is bad. You just take it. The other check is here. Now you notice these three pawns are not blocking the king. So this check, he can move out the way. And then after he moves, I can call it check. The king can't move back because it's all covered by the rooks. So he has no choice but to move his pawn forward, which is forced. And then the queen will come here, call it check, and that'll be checkmate because everything will be covered and the two pawns will be up here. So everything is blocked off. So that will be checkmate. Checks, captures, and threats. Here, all three are blocked off, so I'm going to look for a back ring checkmate first before anything else. Check. The king has only one square to go. Check. One capture, and then that will be checkmate. Hopefully, you're getting used to back ring checkmates and how to spot them easier if you haven't already. All right, checks, captures, and threats. Well, if I call it check this way, the king is just going to move back. All right. So there's not much of a follow-up. But his rook is behind the king. So if I can call it check this way, which I can, and is protected by a pawn, the king would be forced to move one of these two squares, and then I can get the rook for free. I think this is called a screwer, I believe. I'm not sure if it's a screwer or x-ray, but I think it's a screwer. They're both very similar, I think. Let's check, check, and obviously, oh, okay. Pawn move. I didn't really worry about that because I didn't think of. I already knew he couldn't do anything with it, so I didn't even think of calculating that part. So, all right. Check, captures, and threats. Well, first and foremost, our queen is under attack as well. So this check is not good. You just take it. And this check right here is the only other check, and it's protected by the pawn. So that's checkmate because he has nowhere to go. He has no squares to go to safely. It just can't leave. And it can't be captured by one of his pieces. So that's checkmate. Checks, captures, and threats. It's a little rough. If I take There's no direct captures. It's this one here. You just take it with the rook, so it's not that. Captures. The only capture is the bishop. So let's say if I take that, if he were to capture back, I can call it check, and then after he moves, I take the rook. So it'll be capture, and after I capture, I don't think he would take. I think it's just a free piece. If he does take, then obviously you can take the rook too. So it'll be capture. And what can he do after this? The only thing he can do is take this pawn, maybe. So it looks pretty good. I like it. Okay, he did take it, which is bad. All right, checks, captures, and threats. Let's see here. Let's see. This is a check. However, the king can move back one. Okay, I see it now. Check again. You'll take it, and then that would be checkmate. It's all forced. Be checkmate on here. That'd be check. He has to move back. He can't move here because of pawn. And that's why this works. And that would be checkmate. I don't know what pattern this is called. Checks, captures, and threats. Checks, captures, and threats. Let's see here. Check. The king can't move down because this rook. Can't move here because the bishop. So this is a check. Yeah, and he can't move here because of the rook as well. So that'll be checkmate in one. All right. I thought it was going to be a little harder than that, but that would be checkmate in one. Checks, captures, and threats. He has these two pawns in front of him, and he's in the corner. So I'm going to look for back rank mates first to see if it's possible. Let's see here. I don't see it possible. I have this check here, where you can just take it, and then I don't have a follow-up. I mean, if I call check again, he can just take it with the rook or the queen or the king. Like, it's not looking very good. There's this move here where he can just take it. And then if I take back, he'll just take it. And then I'll be done a rook. So there's no check and there's no immediate capture. So now I have to look at her threats. I'm going to calculate threats. So this is a threat I can see because of this and this. So how can he handle this? Well, he can capture it. Let's say with his rook. And then I don't see a follow-up. Yeah, and if he captures the queen, then we can just trade, and there's no follow-up that I see. So there's this queen move right here, but to try to push, but he has a check right here. If I move the queen out of the way, and it'll be mate. I move back one, and that'll be mate. So against me. So moving this queen away from this square will be bad. So the queen would have to stay on this diagonal if it does move. Or at least somewhere's around, you know. So it's not a queen move. I can attack the queen, which is a threat. And if the queen moves not on one of these diagonals, then I will be able to take this for a mate. So if I go here, the queen Let's see here. The queen has these squares that are all safe and protecting the rook. A little unsure of how to continue. But this looks like the first move for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. Well, all right. I was thinking pretty much more into it than it wanted me to. It's not good to solve puzzles that way. It's actually good to actually understand all of it. But I was a bit confused, which happens. All right. Checks, captures, and threats. These two are protecting each other. So this check is fine. He can't capture. I'll be covering all these squares. So the king can only have this square to move to. After I do that, the bishop can come in and attack him again. And then he'll have to go here. And that'll be checkmate right here on on c2, I mean. You checkmate on c2. That's check, check, and checkmate. Checks, captures, and threats. That's the easiest way to go about it. Let's see here. Well, first, because of this, I normally look for back rank checkmates, but I only see a check back there, so that's out of the question. He's threatening a couple of things, and I can't take because of pin. If I were to block with my rook, this is protected by the knight. Queen can't go back here. Queen can't go here. The queen has these two squares. So if I move my rook over, the queen can only go here, here. I don't think there's much to do after that. I don't really see a follow-up, to be honest. I mean, if I take this knight, he can just take it with this. Yeah. My first thought was if he took off the queen, maybe take the rook, and then, I have these three versus these two, but that's not going to happen because he can just take it with his rook. I was trying to see if I had something with that. And this is also attacking my rook as well. So I think it's the rook move because the rook is being attacked. And yeah. So it looks like this is it. But I'm not entirely sure what the follow-up will be. Okay. I can take here, protecting the rook. But if he takes my queen, I would have to take back, and this queen can move out the way because I'm in check. If I wasn't in check, then him taking my queen, I can take his queen, but I'll be in check. So I don't think that's it. I can take his queen now, and if he takes mine, I can move my king over, and his rook and his knight will both be attacked. And if he does anything like take the knight, I can take his rook. If he would have moved the rook over, I can take his rook this way. So it looks like, yeah, take the queen, move over, and I should win a piece this way. Okay, well, I guess not. All right. Chess, captures, and threats. Let's go to the next one. I'm a little. I really want to understand what happened. The rook went, the knight went, took the queen. He took with check. Oh, I could have just taken it off my knight and not even move my king. Okay. All right, that makes sense. All right. Checks, captures, and threats. Okay. First and foremost, I don't see any direct checks that I can do here. So let's look for captures. There's a capture here, and he can capture my queen, but then I can capture his queen, and I'm threatening his rook. So it looks to me like this is probably it. I take the bishop, he takes my queen, I take his queen, he moves the rook out the way, I take the bishop probably. So okay, I take the rook. And then this. All right. I knew it was up a piece. I didn't realize I had to capture more, but all right. Check. King has to move here. Check. The king is forced to move here. I think it's a follow up. I don't know if there's any follow ups. For some reason, I really think this is the answer. So I'm trying to find a follow up for it. But I don't really see one right now. So it's a little. Oh, this pawn is going downward. So this check right here will be checkmate afterward. So that'll be checkmate. Okay. That's check, and this will here will be checkmate. All right. That was pretty good. This is check. King has to move. Take the bishop. That'll be checkmate. That's very simple. There's a couple ones that are a little difficult for me, so I'm glad that was easy. I'm usually happy as long as I get over 20. But recently I've been getting a 30 normally, so good with that. Checks, captures, and threats. But first and foremost, I can't move my knight anywhere because it is blocked by it is pinned. So that's not going to happen. So it's not a check. Captures, I can take here, and he can take back. I don't see a very good follow up after that. Set card check. This is blocked off. I mean, if you move to the side one, I really wouldn't know what to do afterwards. So I might get this one wrong. This is blocked off by the rook. Yeah, this is definitely not going to happen. So I see a capture. Queen captures back. A check. Maybe, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and see how this works out. Okay. He went the other way. I was thinking he was going to go this way. I get to free bishop, which I didn't calculate. That's what I was missing. And I get a free bishop out of it. This is blocked off by the pawn, and this is blocked off by the bishop. So after I capture his bishop, he can't put me in check and then take the knight. So, all right. Checks, captures, and threats. Well, I can't take here because he'll just take it. I don't have a good check. He would just take it. I can with the queen here. But it doesn't feel like it's forcing move. It doesn't feel like I'm forcing anything. And over here, I don't feel like I'm forcing anything either. I don't. I mean, he can call a check, and I move up. I don't know. It doesn't feel very forceful. This check right here is forceful. This capture. That's forceful. The queen is blocking it off. He only have 2 squares to go to. If he went back, if I call a check, and he went back 1, this queen can go here, and then it'll be mate. However, if I call a check, and he went back here to b8, this right here will be threatening mate in 1. You might have to move his rook down, capture. Yeah. Okay, so this looks good. Okay. Yeah, I'm supposed to capture because if I don't capture and I move, he can just call check and come in. And if I move here, he can move the rook out the way, and then it'll be check again. So I have to capture. And I meant to calculate because one side's probably drawish and one side's probably winning. So if I were to go here, that would be check. If I were to go here, that would be check. How do I decide which one's better? If I go in this corner, I think check. I move back. I think it could be perpetual. I think this way will prevent it. So if I go here, be check. I go here. I'm not sure, but I feel like I have more room going this way than I do going this way. I know it does matter. In a real game, I probably wouldn't think too much about it, to be honest. I probably should, especially if one is drawish. But in a real game, if this is drawish, I can go back and then go here next time. So it doesn't really matter that much, but in a puzzle, you have to be right the first time. So I think this is it. Okay. Checks, captures, and threats. This right here is first off a common pattern. By the way, the knight is not going to be going here, but it's blocking the king off. So like when the knight is here, these squares are taken up and the king can't move, which means this right here is threatening checkmate. That's like a very common pattern. Right now, the queen's attacking here, but it's defended. You gotta look at everything else. When I move here, I'll be attacking this rook, so the rook will have to move. The rook moves up here. Obviously, I can just take it with the knight. So the purpose of moving here would be to block, but then I can capture with the knight. So this is fine. I really don't see what else to do. Let's check. I mean, I had a check, but I should have calculated that first. I did have a check, but I didn't calculate because I seen a pattern that I'm used to, and I went for that pattern instead of looking for a more forceful move. So that was my fault. Checks, captures, and threats. This is a check, and this is a check. So this is a check, but you can take it. So that's no good. This right here is a check. You can take it, but yeah, I don't really have. Well, actually, I do have follow up. If I call it check this way, I can't do anything about it. But if I call it check this way, because the king is blocked off, the king can't move here, here, or here, right? You just can't because all his pieces are in the way. And this bishop is attacking this square. The queen's attacking this square. This knight is in between it, so I can move out the way. But this knight's attacking my queen. So this knight has to move in a way that's check. And if I go over here and call it check, these pieces are still going to be blocking the king. So if he captures, doesn't matter how he captures, that will be checkmate because, well, checkmate with the queen because the bishop is blocking. So checks, captures, and threats. First off, I'm in check. So now I gotta find out the most accurate move for my piece. And when you click it, it'll tell you your moves. So there's 3 back here and 3 up here. And usually you kind of want to go towards the pawn, I would assume. Let's say he were to go here and he were to go down 1. I can just come up and attack it. If he goes down here and I go up, I don't know what he's going to do after that, but if I go here and he goes down 1, then I can come up. If I go here and he goes down 1, I can still come here. I don't think it really matters too much on which side I go to. But if I go down here, maybe you can call it check and I come with them. I don't know. I don't like having choices like this because I don't know if they're both right or if only one is right. But this kind of shields me from another check, and which I don't think is even important, to be honest. You can move this down as well. You can't move this down because of the rook. So I'm gonna go ahead. All right. Now moving here, obviously, would be threatening to take this pawn. Okay. And all right, that's good for me. I don't know why he just sacrifices rook like that. A person wouldn't do that. All right, I'm going to take this pawn. And then after that, I can make a queen. Even though he's threatening to take my pawns, he doesn't have enough time for that. There's no way he can take all the pawns and make a queen before I do. So, yeah. If you can't tell by looking at it, then it's good to learn to count your moves. Now I got to stop him from coming down here. So if I come here and call it check, he's going to move down, and then there's no way I can stop it. But if I go over here and don't call it check, I will be blocking off the king from protecting the pawn, and the pawn can't go down because I'll just take it. So this is the blocking move here. It's good to remember how this works. And if you were to capture this pawn, you can actually move back onto the square and call it check. And no matter where the king moves, you can take this pawn. So this is a blocking move. All right, they didn't force me to do everything. Wait to move. Checks, captures, and threats. Wait to move. This is the... Well, I've noticed this check first, but you can take it off a pawn. Sorry about that. Check. I want to explain everything in all my thoughts. Sometimes I almost forget stuff, so I probably forgot a few things. This is a check this way. The knight is covering the square. The pawn's covering the square. So this is the only piece left. So he only can go here. So Once I call check, he will be going here, and this right here will be checkmate with the rook and knight. So, oh, that's too fast. All right, that's okay. Check. He move here, and then this right here will be hitting the king and protecting the rook. That would have been mate. So that's fine. All right. Well, I'm glad to do this with you guys. Like, subscribe. Yeah, I kind of messed it up, but that's cool. I got 28. Not that bad. So, all right. Just like, subscribe, and share. And I hope you guys are learning more pattern recognition as I do this. All right. And I also put my I'm gonna put my PayPal in the comments for donations. That just to help me for tournaments. All right. Thank you.